Right, hey lads and lasses, and welcome to Darts Coaching with Dynamite Dave. This is a little bit of an edition of a chuck and a chat. As you can see, I'm sat in the living room. I'm not upstairs in the actual studio itself, and you'll probably be able to hear that on the sound quality. It might be a bit hollow in here because it's quite minimalistic. First of all, what I wanted to say was on the back of yesterday, quite a controversial subject. I know it is, and it still is now. And we're a decade on from when I first started teaching double finishes. And along with the Dynamite Dave way, as I said to you, it was about 16 and a half years ago now where I actually started on the journey of discovering and then developing what I consider to be the correct way to throw darts. As I said on a very recent Facebook post, and there's not, if you think about it, if you actually sit and think about this, it makes sense, doesn't it? All the way throughout sporting and other endeavours, it doesn't matter whether it's engineering or whether it's sports or science. The thing is the science moves on, doesn't it? And sport moves on. I would imagine, I don't know because I've not done the research, but I would imagine in the very, very early days of golf, people just held the club whichever way they wanted to. And the results were probably not as great as they are now because of the new equipment, etc, etc. Does that make sense to you? Because it makes sense to me. So the way that I see things, like I say, to me it's common sense. If there's a right way to hold a rugby ball to throw it, you don't hold a rugby ball side on, do you, and try and throw it like that. You put your hands around it and you use it like a missile. So when you throw it through the air, it's more aerodynamic, and that is just common sense, isn't it? It's common sense, and that is the right way to throw a rugby ball. Kicking a football, and I use this analogy really regularly, especially when I'm coaching people, is I say to them, have you got kids? Yeah. Have you got a lad? Yeah. Did you teach him how to kick a football? Well, yeah, of course he goes to football lessons. I said, right, so where he goes to football coaching lessons, do they teach him to kick the ball toe on? Well, no, obviously not. I say, well, so there's a right way to kick a football then? Well, yeah, you hit it with the top of your foot and then you can gain spin on it and you can do this and you can control it a lot better. Right, so there's a right way to kick a football then. Yeah, so as night follows day, there's a right way to hold a dart, isn't there? There's a right way to throw a dart. There's a right way to stand when you're going to throw a dart. It's totally subjective. Don't forget, when you get 4, 5 and 6 year olds playing a game of football, or when you first give it them when they're like 18-month old and you give them a football to kick, what do they do? Toe bang it. So what's happened with darts? I've said this a million times. Happened to me. It happened to everybody from my era. It's not quite the same now. If you want to, you can go and get some coaching from different people. What they'll teach you, I have no idea. I only teach what I teach. But what happened to me, same as happened to everybody. Boom, there's a set of darts. And what do? Fling them at the board, whichever way you like to get them at the board, because you don't know any different. Is that not exactly the same as a child toe banging a football? And then their parent or themselves, as they start to grow up a little bit, say they carry on doing that, believing themselves that they're going to be able to be as good a footballer as David Beckham, Pele. They're going to get to the top, they're going to be paid £1 million a week like they are now, and they're going to be able to do that by toe banging it because that is the most comfortable way that they can kick a football. So they're comfortable and they believe that they're going to be really good at football by kicking it with the end of the toe. Same with cricket. Let's take it on to something different. Cricket, right? So you get hold of a cricket bat. There's a correct way to hold a cricket bat and there's a correct way to defend your wicket. Oh, no. All you do is just hold a cricket bat with one hand. And when the bowler comes to bowl at you, just swipe at it. Because you're comfortable holding it with one hand. No, there's a correct way to hold a cricket bat, isn't there? There's a correct way to hold it, and there's a correct way to defend your wicket, and there's a correct way to strike the ball. So if there's a correct way to hold the bat, defend your wicket, strike the ball, then there's a right way to stand, there's a right way to address the board, and there's a right way to throw the darts, isn't there? It just, night follows day for me. And how and why have I come to these sort of conclusions? Because to me it makes sense, and I've got a very practical mind. My background is I started off in life as an engineer. I started off as a mechanic, started off before that as an engineer because I didn't want to be a mechanic. This is the way my brain works. I didn't want to just know how to bolt a disc onto a car. I wanted to know what it was made out of, why it was made the way that it was made, and what forces were enacted onto that disc to make that car stop. You get loads and loads of mechanics where all they do is just bolt on parts, especially now because we've got computers, haven't we? Plug it in, says such a thing, monkey grips a pole, you just take that part off the shelf, go and plug it in, job's done. Whereas in my day, if you wanted to be really advanced at motor vehicle engineering, because that's what I class myself as, a motor vehicle engineer, not a mechanic. You get fitters, you get mechanics, and then you get motor vehicle engineers. And I was a motor vehicle engineer stroke technician. And that's why I wanted to do that, because I wanted to understand how everything that worked. And during the years of doing that, developing myself in my formative years, teens into my 20s and 30s, doing that means that now I can, if I've got a problem on a car or in the house or anywhere, I know what I need to do to put that right in my own head. And I can go to my box and I've got loads of bits of plastic and sheet metal and all sorts of stuff. And anything that I need to repair something, I can make it, and I can make it myself. And that's the way my brain works, and that's why I came to the conclusion that there's got to be a right way to throw a dart. That's why it came to me actually doing those 2.5 years, coming up with the Dynamite Dave way, developing it. And then if you look through my YouTube channel, you'll find that for the first, it was a long time, I think it must have been out 6 or 7 years, I made no claims whatsoever, not a one. I never said that this was the right way to do it. I just suggested to people it was worth having a go at. Now I think after over a decade, I've got the track record now to turn around and say, this is right, it is right. It's as simple as that. And I've allowed a decade's worth of feedback from people, a decade's worth of my channel growing without me ever advertising it. I don't advertise it. I don't go all around the social media platforms. Every now and again I'll put a statement on or something like that. But other than that, my YouTube channel and all my other platforms have grown naturally by word of mouth. Now if you think about it, a working class lad from Hyde in Manchester has put a YouTube channel on. I've gone from, alright, it's a long time, 10 years, 13 years I think now, and I've only got 13,000 subscribers, I think it is, something like that, or 12,000, I'm not really sure to be honest with you, it's at the bottom of this video, but I've got in between 10 and 12,000 subscribers over that 10 years, and it's just grown on its own. And also, as it's grown on its own, I've got to a point now where I believe that I've got the background to turn around and say what I'm saying is right, and I believe it to be right. To me, it makes common sense. When somebody turns around to me and says, oh, you should throw the way that you're comfortable. Well, I have had a saying for that for the last 6 or 7 years. Well, if you're crap and you're comfortable being crap, then you stay comfortably crap. And that's all you'll ever be. Because there's no such thing as throw things the comfortable way. It's not comfortable. If you try the Dynamite Dave way, you get aches and pains, it's awkward. I've had people say all them sort of things to me, but the ones that have persevered and broke through the other side are now enjoying darts that they never believed they would ever be able to throw in their lives. And it's not 1 or 2 people. That's another thing that people say to me, especially on Facebook, and the clowns that you get. Who are you? I don't know who you are. Well, that's your problem, not mine. There's 125,000 to 150,000 views a month I get on my YouTube channel. And there's a reason for that. Obviously there's a reason for that. And the reason is it makes sense and it's true. I would imagine if you go back in history, there'll be people like me who've come up with out-of-the-box suggestions in the first place that are now common. I would imagine whoever it was who came up with, and again, like I say, I've not done the research into it, but golf. I bet donkeys years ago, when the golf was at St Andrews and they were all in the 1920s or 1900s or whenever golf started, I don't even know when it started to be honest with you, I know they had wooden clubs and they had bamboo handles on them and what have you. I'm sure that people just gripped the club whichever way they wanted. So that, at that time, means that it was more luck than judgment, and there was one or two people that in their own way made a bit of a progression. But at some point, somebody came up with locking your fingers together round the golf club. So locking your two hands together, so your wrists were stronger, your hands were linked, it stopped the club from twisting in your wrists, and it made your actual swing a lot more productive. Now, somebody come up with that at some point or other, and I've done exactly the same thing. I've come up with the Dynamite Dave way at some point or other. I've put it forward, and it's gained traction, and everything that I've put in that has been outside the box but is logic to me, like the double finishes, like my bone management, like all the other stuff that I've done, the stance, the most solid way of standing. I don't believe that standing on one foot and just having like the end of your toe on your back foot is stable. I've watched people. You think about it, I've not actually just come out and said standing like that is unstable because I think so. I've actually researched it, and I've watched people. I've watched people in the pub, I've watched people on the TV, and as they go to throw and they lift the back foot up off the floor, they're wobbling all over the place. Now that might work fantastic for you when you're young, when you've got millions and billions or whatever it is of neurons going on in your head firing at the same time, and you've got that youth. But what you've got to understand is over time they die. Your brain dies every day. There's parts of your brain that die every day. And as you get older and older and older, your brain doesn't work the same. I know that from when I was a youth, and so now my brain doesn't work anything like it used to. It was 10 times faster then than it was now. But if you make things simple, it's easier to repeat. It's easier to fix when it goes wrong. And that's the in essence what the Dynamite Dave way is. It's very natural, because when you go to throw a stone, you don't go like that with it. If somebody gives you a cricket ball, how many times have you ever seen somebody get hold of a cricket ball or a rugby ball, let's say, and put it under their eye and go like that with it and try and throw it into the field? You've never seen that, for the simple reason is that is not how human beings throw. Human beings throw from here, right? It starts out here, throwing a cricket ball or a rugby ball or anything, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller till it comes to the side of your face and you're throwing your dart like that. Two moving parts, which is your elbow and your release. How much simpler can you get than that? How much more common sense to make that throw? Let me get my face out at sun if I can. How much more simpler can you make a throw than that? How much more simpler can you make a stance than standing with your 2 feet flat on the floor and adjusting to go around the board? That adjusting to go around the board, that took me about 5 years to perfect that. I was teaching that, and I was teaching different arm speed to start off with, because that's what I thought in the early days was the best way to do it. But now I teach the gun turret because I found a better way of doing it. And a better way of doing it, rather than changing arm speed to go to the top of the board to get into the double top, slowing it down to come down to the double three, which was effective, don't get me wrong, it was effective, but it was nowhere near as effective as the gun turret. So obviously it's like a tank, innit? You come across, you look at your target, you come down and you move across like this. But once you get used to it, you just lock straight into the place, because your body learns where your actual stance, where your body needs to be for each and every segment of the board. And then it's literally just a matter of looking at your target and putting the dart in your target. want it. Somebody said, no, I'd go treble 19, treble 19. Yeah, but you're going for 2 treble 19s. And if you stray, you're going to go into, you've got half a dozen different combinations, haven't you? So if you're going down for 2 19s, if you hit 1 19 and you miss on the other one, you could hit it on a single 7, a treble 7, a single 3, a treble 3, because the actual gap is that big. When you get down towards the double, it's that big. So common sense dictates, all right, you might be frightened of it because it's the outside of the board, but that's just natural fear. That, don't be frightened of it. It's a target. It's a target that you're hitting with your dart. And as I said yesterday, right at the beginning of the video, the only way you can ever win a match, a leg, a match, a tournament, or money, is by hitting the outside ring. So use it all the time. And when you use it all the time, and I hope this gets through to the people who are doubters, when you use it all the time, it becomes easier and easier to hit. And the easier it becomes to hit, it means that you then have the confidence to go for any double on the board, any amount of times. There was even one on there, Ray Phillips, who says he goes for 3 double 16s. So, fine, if you want to do that, but you think about it, right? For me, again, it does have a logic about it. Because if you hit 2 of those double 16s, and then you hit a single 16, leaves you double 8. So, what more? What more? Or, if you hit 2 of the double 16s, and you miss on the outside with the last one, or the first one, so say you miss on the outside with the first one, a lot of people will then go and try and hit a treble. I'd be exactly the same as Ray, because I'd be thinking to myself, if I hit 2 double 16s now and I've got a marker to hit those 2 double 16s, leaves me double 16 to finish. So it leaves me on a 1 darter. You go off and go for a treble and cock it up, you could end up on an odd number where you're going to have to use 2 darts to finish. Or 3 darts to finish. You might only have 1 attempt at a double. You might have 3 attempts at a double if you do it that way. So it's all much of a muchness. It's all, again, subjective. But there's one thing that I will absolutely guarantee you. If you don't have a go for it, you're never going to hit it. There's no way you are ever going to hit something that you're too frightened to have a go for. And where's the best time to have a go for it? In your structured practice. Persevere with it. Especially if you're a beginner. Don't be frightened of going for the outside ring and missing. It's what it's all about. Go for the outside ring. If you miss, again, let's say 72. I use these a lot as examples, but because I like the way that this works. 72. If you go for double 16 and you miss on the outside of the wire, it's simply grouping. So all you do then is exactly what I've taught you for hitting 180s. Aim for the flight. So you throw one, it just goes on just on the outside of the wire or fair way off the wire. All you do is aim for the top part of the flight of the dart that's in the board. And you watch how close it goes if it don't go in. And if it goes in, you're there, aren't you? You set up, it goes into double 16 on your second dart. You've got a dart for double top. So you've still got a dart for finishing. However, even if you go for double top and miss it on the outside, you're still looking at a 1 dart finish. So you've got 3 attempts to finish the game. If you've got to use 2 darts, you've only got 1 dart to finish the game. You've got 1 attempt at a double. If you use 1 dart, you've got 2 attempts at a double. If you use the way that I've just said, you'll have all 3 in hand. And then you can adjust yourself and you've got a much better chance of hitting that double. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, lads and lasses, you'll only ever get out of this game what you're prepared to put in. And always, 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 to the hockey! See you again soon.